The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Please say good morning. And I'm a big fan. Wayne Allen Root joins us. It's good to have you back on the show, brother. Good morning. Welcome back to Denver.
Hey, Peter. Great to be on with you, as always.
Yeah. Talk about yourself briefly. We ask folks to do that so people, if they've never heard you before, get an idea who you are.
Sure. I was the vice presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party in the 2008 election, so I was on the presidential ticket against Barack Obama. I'm Obama's college classmate from Columbia University, class of '83. I have switched back to the Republican Party, endorsed Mitt Romney at Fox News last September before the election, and may be running against Harry Reid for U.S. Senate in 2016 for the great state of Nevada, where I live. I'm the author of The Ultimate Obama Survival Guide, one of the best-selling books of 2016, one of the top 10 political books. And my new book comes out in July. It's called The Murder of the Middle Class.
Yeah. And I'm a fan of your work, and I have been proudly, like, wearing the jacket birther now for, I don't know, pushing 10 years. And we have, I have this idea, and I don't know how many people can reach out. We're trying desperately. The one guy I want to contact is Donald Trump. I tell you what I'd like to do, Wayne. I'd like to do what they do in academia, where they bring together all these academicians who, for instance, scientists or astrophysicists or people about a spot in history, and they deliver papers and they have panels and they discuss that issue or that moment or whatever it is, and they reconfigure things. Wouldn't it be great to have a gathering of people who are seeking the truth about Barack Obama's life? And, yourself, I give you 20 guys right now, men and women, that I'd love to see, stand and speak and offer evidence and present a paper at the end of all of it, a white paper at the end of all of it. And the one guy that I can think of that could underwrite all these crazies coming together and give them a place to stay would be Trump, because, as you know, and anybody who else watches, the news media made Trump look like a fool when they brought that phony birth certificate in, as I say, made by Jimmy down the hall. How about that for an overall? Can you speak to that concept, and then let's talk about the SSN?
Well, yeah, and I could speak to the fact that when we were at Columbia University, we learned from quite a few different books in all of our political science classes. Obama was a political science major. I was a political science major, and the major book that we all studied was Solinsky, Rules for Radicals.
Sure.
And if you read that book, the number one goal is to make anyone who's your opponent look like they're insane, look like they're crazy, look like they're radical, demonize them and denigrate them and make them look like fools, even if they're telling the truth and even if they're dealing in facts. And that's exactly what the opposition of Barack Obama does. He tries to make everyone who questions him look like a crazy person. All I've ever said is that when I went to Columbia University, I've honestly answered that I was a political science major. I knew everyone in the entire political science department, and there was no Barack Obama. Never saw him, never heard of him, never met him, don't know another person who ever saw him or met him. And I even went out of my way to track down the number one professor ever at Columbia University, Dr. Henry Graff, called him in his house and said, listen, there's no way to graduate Columbia as a political science major without going to your class. Did you ever have Barack Obama? He said, Wayne, I'm the presidential historian of Columbia University's history. I know everything about every politician who ever went to Columbia, and certainly I know of every president in this country's modern history, and all my students who have ever gone on to any political position. I followed them all, and I'm a big fan of yours, Wayne. And there was no Barack Obama in any of my classes. And I've spoken to all the other professors, and none of them ever had Barack Obama in their classes. So I've repeated this in the media, which is nothing more than a fact. And the result of that is I had a 15-minute tirade on national TV by Rachel Maddow on MSNBC saying Wayne Root is a kook, a conspiracy theorist, a nutcase, and a crazy man. This is me, a guy who's never been in my whole life a conspiracy theorist. I'm a self-made millionaire. I'm a talented guy at everything I do. I've never said a word about a conspiracy theory. This is what the left does to people who dare to speak out and tell the truth about Barack Obama. All I've said is there's something wrong with his story. His narrative isn't right. Somehow, some way, he's a Manchurian candidate. he wasn't at Columbia University that anyone I know could verify. So it's a very strange story.
Yeah, you and I come to the conclusion of that use of his SSN, and he has. Before we come back to your witnessing, I'm like you. I mean, I personally believe that he has a social security number that's not his, but I believe he really actually has a real one. And that real one, I think, was either designated to a foreign national or whatever else Obama presented himself as. And that's the one I think if anybody could chase down, for instance, the Baskin-Robbins, and that one that he, in his book, is probably the only true thing in his book, that he worked in the Baskin-Robbins when he was a kid in Waikiki, I think it is. Don't hold me to that. But I think he worked at that Baskin-Robbins. There would be a Social Security number on that job app. And I guarantee it's not the one he has now. Why do you think he has that SSN?
You know, he's just had a very strange, exotic background. We know he grew up in Indonesia. There's nothing about that anybody could argue with or deny. I mean, he went to Indonesia with his mom. I'm friends with people who are investigative reporters and went to Indonesia and literally went to the school where Barack Obama attended, the elementary school. He's a little kid in Indonesia.
Yeah, sure.
And they found the papers at the principal's office, in his files. And the papers literally say that Barack Obama was adopted by his mom's dad,
sure, right.
and that he's an Indonesian citizen. He took Indonesian citizenship and had to, because you can't attend public schools in Indonesia without being an Indonesian citizen.
And
so he's a little kid. So things like
yeah.
that have happened in his past. Very
Right.
strange.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he used that to get into Columbia University because that put him to the top of the head of the list.
Yeah, I do too.
So I've always guessed that he got into Columbia with lousy grades by portraying himself as an Indonesian foreign citizen.
I absolutely agree with that. And I just don't know when the SSN number switch took place. But, of course, because everything is hidden, locked away, deep-sixed, protected by law firms, you can't see it, can you?
No, you can't see it, and that's what's interesting. When Harry Reid made his guess during the Romney campaign, his terrible guess or his lie that Mitt Romney never paid taxes, Mitt Romney released his tax returns and proved that he did pay taxes, and the Senate Majority Leader looked like a fool and a liar, and nobody cares. No one on the left said a word. No one in the media said a word about the terrible thing Harry Reid did. But when I made my guess that Barack Obama, at the same time that happened, I said, listen, Harry Reid has opened the door. If he can guess about Mitt Romney's taxes, which he hasn't seen, I can guess about Barack Obama's college records, which no one has seen. And I believe they're hidden because they'll say that he was an Indonesian foreign student, and that's how he got into Columbia.
No, I believe that.
Well, you know what? They've never been released since I said it. He had plenty of chance to make me look foolish, never released it, which tells me to this day his records are sealed. He's got something terrible to hide. But it really doesn't matter, Peter. In the end, we don't need that issue. In the end, he's the worst president in American history. He's destroyed the American economy. He's killed jobs. Everything has gone bad. The Obamacare is singularly the worst bill ever passed in the history of America, rammed down our throats and taking away health care for millions of people, including cancer patients, little children with cancer. I can't, the number of friends that I've personally got who have lost their insurance and now can't get another policy because they wait on the phone lines for 6 hours at a time. If you've ever tried to call Obamacare, there's no way to get through. And so this entire country has been screwed up by this man. So, we don't have to talk about his background. We could talk about present day. He is, without a doubt, the worst president in American history.
Here's the thing that I think is interesting it's not how many people signed up for Obamacare, how many people have paid. And the answer is very few people have paid. You can sign up, but if you don't pay, that's where the rubber meets the road. So for another time when you're on a radio show, if these people claim sign-ups, well, that's fine.
Right.
But what about paying? And paying
right. Well, I've seen the stats, and very few of his supporters are willing to pay for anything. They thought it was free health care.
No, they don't pay.
So when the bill comes and it's $20 a month, something you and I would say, wow, that's cheap. Yeah. They say, but I thought it was supposed to be free. Yeah. The percentage of his supporters who have signed up and now have refused to pay the first bill is astronomical. Yeah. They're not even willing to pay $20 a month or $5 a month. You know, and the only way they could pay the 5 or the 20 is with another welfare payment from Barack Obama.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about a group of voters. You know, my belief is that Obamacare is going to bring down the whole healthcare system. I said this from day one. And, of course, that may very well have been their plan. When it brings down the system, then they say you have to go to single payer. There is no chance to make it work with a private industry. So it may very well have been the plan from day one to make sure you eliminate health insurance and put government 100% in charge. It's a disaster. And the question is whether it's a mistake disaster or whether it's a purposeful disaster.
Well, come back to his SSN, and when do you think he picked up the one he uses now, which of course is not his, and it's issued of all places from the state of Connecticut? We're talking a lot about Connecticut with the gun stories, but it comes from Connecticut, a place he never was, a place his father never was, or if his father went there, he went there on a weekend from Harvard. I remember Bill O'Reilly saying his father got it for him when he went to Harvard. Bill O'Reilly's got more gas. It's a wonder he can't float, but you wonder about this. And so riddle me this. Where does he get the SSN and how?
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.